What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of The Bear Season 2. Yes, Chef, The Bear is back. FX Hulu series. The surprise of 2022 when it comes to TV. I think that's pretty much consensus at this point. The Bear came out of completely nowhere to make top 5 lists, top 10 lists for everyone, certainly for me. I thought the show was absolutely tremendous the way it debuted, and the surprise was really special. And now the show is back after just 1 year, and to the surprise of exactly nobody, The Bear is still excellent. I think The Bear Season 2 is really, really great. You could make a case it's even better than Season 1. I think it's a really natural progression, levels up in a bunch of different areas, doesn't reinvent what it was, but also avoids that sophomore slump. Very impressive. Love the series. Went from 8 episodes to 10 episodes with Season 2. I'm going to spoil everything, but just so you know, really loved it. Come back when you have watched it and leave a comment. Let me know how you're feeling about The Bear Season 2. But yeah, love the show. The show from Christopher Storer, creator, writer, director. I think what makes The Bear so great ever since Season 1 is that this is a show that, portrays the perils and tension and never-ending stress of working in the kitchen, working in the restaurant industry. And it does that incredibly effectively. But it's not actually a show about cooking. It's not a food show, even though when it does the food stuff, it does it quite well. This is a show about character, and specifically loss and grief and tragedy and mental health and purpose. Like the character moments and the character growth outside the kitchen is what you're actually invested in with these characters, because they're so richly drawn and written. We've been invested since Season 1, and the journey that like our core characters go on is something you really care about. And I think that's what makes The Bear so special, is that its priorities, I think, are just a bit higher minded and more interesting than if this was just a more simpler show. I'm sure The Bear would still be very entertaining if it was much more pure, the grind of kitchen life. Season 2 is really all about, following Season 1 finale when they find Mikey's money in the tomato cans. The Bear crew needs to make a new restaurant, but they want to do it the right way, and they want to go for like a Michelin star and do like a fine dining experience and reinvent the Bear. And they have a lot of things going against them in terms of financial constraints, the race against the clock, infrastructure issues with their location, etc., etc. If the show was just focused on that, that's plenty dramatic and plenty interesting enough that with the great ensemble that you have with the cast, it would still be a great show. But when you step outside that core structure and you spend time with the characters doing other things, that's where like The Bear really blossoms, so it makes it so special. I think this is easily top 2, top 3 show of the year thus far. I'd say it's, Succession and The Bear. I love Beef, I love The Last of Us, but I think Succession and The Bear are the top 2 shows of the year thus far. And of course, come back later at the end of the year when I do my top 10, we'll find out what I thought then. But right now, I think it's one of the best series. So yeah, I think the cast also, of course, it needs those flowers, right? Jeremy Allen White kind of coming out of nowhere in Season 1, even though he had been a member of the Shameless ensemble for almost 10 years. But this is a tour de force performance. In general, Season 1 we expect to do well at the Emmys. We'll figure out what it gets nominated for in a few weeks. But Jeremy Allen White, really tremendous, really carrying, I think, a lot with the Carmy character. And we learn more about Carmy's backstory and his past, and you find out why he struggles with so much when it comes to the pressure and tension of his life, but also just the way he acts and carries himself. Allen White really delivers on that regard, and it's just an amazing performance. Io Idibiri, she's been around a while, both as a writer on What We Do in the Shadows, a supporting actor in the comedic side of things, but she also completely blossoms in this role as Sydney. Amazing. And then Emma Moss-Bachrach, again, as a Richie. He's someone who's worked a ton. You see him all the time. I mean, in the past year alone, he's done 2 seasons in The Bear, a great run on Andor, and some other stuff. He's a busy guy. But this, as Richie, really blowing off the screen, blowing the top, if you will, especially in season 1. Like the fact that those 3 performances are so, I think, finely tuned from a writing perspective and then accurately rendered by the actors really makes this show shine. And then even the supporting characters, right? Lionel Boyce, L-Boy from Odd Future back in the day, amazing as Marcus in a supporting role. Oliver Platt as Cicero is great. Carmi's character Sugar gets a whole lot more to do as a character in season 2 to great effect. Tina has even more going on in season 2. I think, and of course, season 1 has one of the great cameos in recent memory with John Bernthal in a flashback sequence as Carmi's deceased brother, Mikey. Bernthal giving you absolutely everything with such limited screen time, blowing you off the screen. And of course, season 2, perhaps the most talked about moment of season 2 would be episode 6, Fishes, which is a 5 years in the past flashback to a family Christmas. And you learn really more about Carm, why Carm is the way he is in terms of how he acts socially and how fucked up he is based off his family. And Bernthal returns as Mikey and is absolutely amazing once again. And I'll get into the other people that show up for the first time in that episode. But the Bernthal, less is more, but also comes out of the bullpen and just throws 105 miles an hour and gets 3 strikeouts type role that he has on this show is amazing. And I would not be shocked at all if we get another flashback episode with featuring him in season 3. And I'm sure they'll make a season 3 because this show is just so critically adored and also seems to be a pretty solid ratings hit as far as Hulu and FX is concerned. I think my only gripe with this is I would love if this show was a bit more parsed out. You get the full binge, the full season released all at once. Even if they release this maybe 3-episode chunks or something, it would just be awesome to sustain the conversation of the show over a long stretch of time. Now, obviously, I say this all the time. People think this a lot. But in the case of The Bear, season 1, I think the conversation was sustained because people were finding it and hearing about the show because there was not a lot of hype going into it. And it ended up having a longer tail than it probably would have as far as binge shows goes. Season 2, I'm a bit skeptical that would be the case because I think most people who want to watch it perhaps already watched it all in this past weekend. It's been out about a week now. We'll see. But I wish that was a little differently. Anyway, so let's just kind of get into the whole season as a whole. As I said, writing amazing, cast amazing, what the show is truly interested in beyond the kitchen, amazing. And then, I think just episode to episode, The Bear is just so compelling, and it really shows you the highs you can achieve with a 30-minute format. The Bear, it'll be nominated in the comedy categories at the Emmys, and it's a funny show, consistently funny, for sure, but also consistently dramatic, and it's definitely, leaves you with a lot of tension as a viewer. It's not always a fun watch. There's a lot of agita-inducing moments. It's very dramatic. It's a lot like Barry, which was run as a comedy, but not really a comedy. I think, that being said, the fact that it's so dramatic in 30-minute chunks, again, just speaks to, I think, the economy of the writing and just the vision of the whole series, that it's able to really communicate what it wants to in brief chunks. It's only I think, 9 30-ish minute episodes, and then episode 6 is an hour long, so that's 6-hour season. It really gets right into it. Episode 1 and 2, kind of really set you off with the tension of making the new restaurant, the new Bear. Tina gets sent to culinary school. There's a lot of tension in the building, finding mold. We figure out Sugar is pregnant, things like that. Sid has a fight with her dad. Sid and Carmi are going over the menu, the chaos menu, and that is something that's going to continue. And really kind of setting the stakes for what the seasons to come. I believe we're 12 weeks out from their intended open. You get this big pitch where Richie, Sid, and Carm pitch to Cicero their vision for the new Bear and basically begging him to give them the money they need because they don't have enough money, even with all the money they found from Mikey, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I think it just immediately grabs you, right? Watching, I think watching the kind of desperation that all those characters have and their vision for the Bear and figure out what that vision actually is, but also realizing that this amazing race against the clock. Then very quickly, I believe in episode 2, we get introduced to Claire, a figure from Carmi's past, played by Molly Gordon. And Claire is set up and delivered on as a love interest later in the season. But a nice bit of like new piece of casting. Molly Gordon, she's in I think Shiva Baby. She's been in a few things. Rising actress. Nice addition for sure. Episode 3, we kind of move right along. Building out like the tasting and stuff. The wall falls down. You get that moment of Carmy at a AA meeting. I believe it's the only moment in the season, but just kind of reminding you of the struggles he has, as a person. Moving forward. Episode 4, Sugar's pregnancy gets revealed to the rest of the cast inadvertently, and Marcus gets sent to Sweden. Marcus, the dessert man, needs to hone his craft. I mean, they're really trying to be a Michelin star restaurant. They're trying to up their game, and they send Marcus to Sweden to link up with another figure of Carmy's career past, played by Will Poulter, our first like big cameo of the season. This episode's directed by Rami Youssef, and I think it's really amazing episode. It's one of those like singular episodes really only about Marcus, and I think the rapport they have as they go through those conversations they have. It's like, yes, we're watching like Marcus get good at making these like delectable delights, but hearing from Will Poulter's character about his drive to be the best, and then realizing when he encountered other people in his career that he could never actually be the very, very best, and that kind of like set him free in a certain sense. Like the conversations they have are great. Will Poulter's tremendous in the show. In just this one brief moment, really love that episode. I think episode 5, moving forward, also really tremendous. Carm and Claire go to the party. You actually watch Carm like be in a social setting, and you see how awkward he can be. And episode 6, of course, will show us why he is the way he is. But like, this is a guy who struggles to do so much in life, and like the tension and chaos of high stakes cooking is like all he knows and all he knows how to be in. And watching him be in a normal setting with Claire, I think is like really shines. And of course, then he juxtaposed that with Tina going to the bar with her culinary school colleagues, singing karaoke. Love it. I really love the line we get from Richie in this episode. He says it a few times where he's like, Richie's trying to find his place in the new Bear, as someone who doesn't have a whole lot of like technical skills, especially in the kitchen. And I just love his line. He's like, I'm not like this because I'm in Van Halen. I'm in Van Halen because I'm like this. Sounds so good. And just the way Moss-Bachrach can like imbue that philosophy into Richie, just so great. And of course, episode 6, Fishes, the hour-long episode. This is the episode that everyone's been talking about because this is like cameo OD. Of course, Bernthal comes back as Mikey, someone we've met before. We also encounter Carmen Mikey's mother, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. Their cousin, I believe, played by Sarah Paulson. Sarah Paulson's character's husband, played by John Mulaney. Their uncle, played by Bob Odenkirk. Mikey Matheson's character is there as well. Richie's there with his wife at the time, who we know he's since separated from in the present, before she's given birth. And Carm is there, coming home for Christmas dinner. And kind of a bit estranged from his family as he's gone to pursue being like a high-end chef. And like, it is just, I think, one of those like, oh, and Cicero's there too. It's just one of those it's a brutal episode to watch. But I think to a lot of people, there's a lot of familiar stuff about that, right? Watching a dysfunctional family exist within itself is familiar, right? I think everyone can relate to having blow-ups, having dark moments around holiday meals, around holiday times. It's definitely relatable in one way or another. And that's an episode where you have like these big, like you cannot stop watching the screen moments, like where Mikey is about to actually explode at Bob Odenkirk's uncle character and throw the fork again. Like that, like tension at the table that the characters feel. You feel it too as a viewer. That shit's crazy. But also like the smaller moments, like when Carm and Mikey connect in like the closet and Carm gives him the drawing and you just see how overwhelmed Mikey is, even though he doesn't know what to do in that moment. The moment upstairs between Richie and his wife, pregnant wife with the Sprite, like the conversation they have, like there's I think a lot like laid out in this episode And I think probably the most showy thing of all would be Jamie Lee Curtis as the mom, who is really struggling with the pressure and tension of, in this moment, like handling the kitchen and delivering the Christmas meal. And like, you just see how, where, Carm and Mikey got so fucked up. This is a family that struggled with substances. Perhaps there's mental illness involved. Perhaps there's some infidelity. It's a bit hinted at in the episode, a bit unclear. Like, there's a lot of baggage and I think weariness with this family. And it's both a flashy and showy episode due to the cameos, and that makes it entertaining in its own right. But it also, I think, is such a essential piece of flashback because it shows you how Carm is the way he is. Like, you understand where he got it from, and it's not as hokey as like, this is why Carm decided to be the best chef. No, it's not even like that. It can never be that neat. That's not what this show does. But kind of watching like Carm's tension amongst his own family, he's most serene in this episode when he's trying to help his mom amidst her very busy kitchen timeline. Tremendous episode. I really liked it. Some people have been a bit down on the Jamie Lee Curtis performance. It's definitely over the top for like an over the top type of person. Didn't bother me. I thought it was really cool. Mulaney though really jumps off the screen. It's easily his most dramatic bit of acting he's like ever really done, and he has like a great moment when he does the toast at the table. I thought he was really great. And Odenkirk, we know how good he is. He's great. Paulson a bit underutilized, but it's cool watching Sarah Paulson not just like do a Ryan Murphy like OD times 1,000 character. That's great. And of course Bernthal, like I said in the pantry scene, he's amazing. But just like, this is just like one of the great actors we have right now. He's so amazing. And him as Mikey feels so realized, even though it's been 90 minutes of total screen time on a TV show. Like, that's all it is, and yet it's so full, so rich as a performance, so good. Episode 7, Forks. This, like the Marcus going to Sweden episode, this is another character episode where Richie gets sent to a like 5-star or whatever it is, like high-end Michelin restaurant at Carm's behest, and he kind of like, I forget the title, but he follows around and like kind of picks up on how they operate, and he sees the precision and fanatical devotion to the job, and he connects with this character Garrett about like why they are the way they are, and like making people's night who are so excited to be there, and that kind of fuels the all out like obsession with doing the job as well as they possibly can, culminating with another cameo, in this case the Chef Terry, the head of this restaurant that Richie's been at for a week. We learn that Chef Terry is played by none other than the great Olivia Colman, and Terry and Richie have just a really honest, heart-to-heart connection while I believe peeling some potatoes or whatever it was to start the day. And that's I think a fantastic episode for Richie, for Moss-Bachrach. This is overall a quieter, more subdued season from him. He was definitely a flashy blow-up kind of character in season 1, and it was amazing at that. But like, now the character has like really experienced some real growth, in this kind of episode I think just amazingly shines. Loved it. And earlier on, I never saw this coming. Earlier on, there's a great moment where Richie's spending time with his daughter, again as a separated parent, and he says a really funny line that I'm sure plenty of people relate to, which is like, and Daddy loves Taylor Swift, honey. He just needed a break. Hilarious line. Great stuff to expect from the bear. Just nice piece of writing. But then at the end of episode 7, Forks, Richie is so fulfilled. He's singing, I believe You Belong With Me by Taylor Swift as he's speeding his car back home. He's so filled of jubilation. Just an hilarious moment, hilarious needle drop. This is a show filled with great needle drops, but like, to pay off the Taylor Swift comment from an episode or 2 back with this like jubilant Taylor Swift drop at the end of an episode, I thought it was like note perfect. Really, really well done. Loved it. And then before you know it, the show is almost over, right? Episode 8, we're 2 weeks out, 10 weeks out. There's 10 days out. This pressure with the fire test, getting some new hires done. Episode 9, the focus on, I loved Marcus showing the desserts to Carm and Sid, then culminating with episode 10, where they had the soft opening as like a test for everyone, um, you know, in their new iteration as a restaurant. This final stretch, I think, is really great because you have, I think, this tension, this disconnect between Sid and Carm, and Sid feeling like Carm isn't giving her his full attention. Carm finally at the end realizing that, but also realizing that because he's giving attention to his, this budding romance with Claire, he's not giving his full attention, his full focus to the restaurant. And he just seems like he's a kind of guy who can't compartmentalize his life. And it ends, and I think the whole episode, like episode 10, the finale, where they go through this test, obviously things go wrong and they go through it. I really love the way it first starts filming you, like following various characters walking in and out of the kitchen, things seeming going well. Then things don't go well, when Carmen gets locked in the fridge because he never got the fridge door fixed, something that was shown throughout the season, just because he had a really bad time management as a person. And Carm kind of coming to this realization, he ends up venting out his fears over splitting his life between Claire and the bear. Inadvertently doing that to Claire, they seem to separate. She calls him back later. I'm sure this will have plenty of meat left on the bone at the start of season 3. And then very quickly, you have this fight through the fridge door between Richie and Carm. And Carm's anger really getting the best of him once again. And I think it's a really great place to leave you because once again, for the most part, very successful day for the bear as a restaurant, the bear as a staff. And yet in their personal lives, there's still a lot of broken things to be mended. And again, just kind of speaks to like where the priorities of the bear really lie. And I think why this show is just so tremendous, so great. Really love season 2. Like I said, I think it's my number 2 show of the year thus far, beyond Succession season 4. But leave a comment, let me know, how did you feel about the bear? How did you like season 2 compared to season 1? Did you wish it came out at a slower pace week to week like me? And I'll talk about the Emmys. We'll see what Bear season 1 looks like for noms in a few weeks. Check in for that. Of course, I'll be talking about the Bear again with the top 10 at the end of the year, I have no doubt. And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.